This recording will be put out um, on Engage for you all to be able to watch again. We'll also be submitting a um, assessment, and that's basically how we will know who either showed up or came and watch the recording to answer the questions that need to be answered. That's how you all will get the credit and be able to program. Is one of those things that's going to is pretty much a layup at this point. We've done 2 presentations. We're going to give you this presentation um, recorded, and then we'll give you the assessment. So there should be no reason that nobody should fail, right? It's like an open book test, and this one is easier than any open book test that you'll probably take in school, because we know sometimes they make open book tests a little harder than they should because it is an open book test. But we're going to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And we're going to go ahead and get started. So, of course, this is the programming training for this upcoming school year for the fall. And as you'll see that today we'll be presenting on a number of topics from complex events and things of that nature. But I'll introduce myself. My name is Asa Mack. For those that don't know or didn't get a chance to meet me last year, I'm the Associate Director for Student Involvement. Some of the things that I am responsible for is student government, leadership development, um, and supporting, of course, Student Media, Graduate Leadership Council, the clubs and orgs, and more. And we have a brand new staff member that I will allow to introduce himself.
All right, so hello everybody. My name is Devontae Parker. I might have been in communication with a couple of you all here and there throughout the summer and getting prepared to club renewal. But I'm the Assistant Director for Student Involvement, and I oversee AUCC, work with our graduate student councils and GOC, some of our complex events and things like that nature as well, and a new club registration process, and assisting our clubs and organizations here on campus. It's a pleasure to meet everybody, and I look forward to connecting with you all today.
So the agenda is going to be, we're going to go over the programming basics. We're going to talk about guidelines. We'll do best practices, and then we'll go over timeline and some resources and a few announcements before we, of course, open up for questions. But if you do have any questions along the way, feel free to put them in the chat, and we will answer those as they come along when we have breaks in between. And so basically we wanted to talk earlier, we wanted to start off with just talking a little bit about what CSI is. And so Center for Student Involvement, once again, is the hub for the experience at American University. We house a lot of the things that, the reason that you all are here, student organizations. So anything that's programmatic from a social and educational standpoint, student media, fraternity and sorority life, once again, GLC, student government, AUCC, the whole gambit. And so what we want to do is do leadership development. We advise organizations. We also help organizations if they're having any type of issues. And so we want to be able to, foster a sense of what true belonging is, not just talking about it, but actually being about it, and equipping you with the skills needed to become the change makers that you all plan to be. So this is the culture, the structure. Of course, Ayana Wilson is our director. She is the head of everything in the sense of she allows for us to do our things. And so she does probably the overarching stuff working with finance. And so she supervises our finance person. And so then you have myself, who is the associate director for student involvement. As you see, I supervise Dante. I work with Devontae. And then we have another assistant director that is coming She'll start in a couple weeks. And so she'll be here before the school year starts. So you'll have an opportunity to meet her as well. And so I work with both of them in helping with, we team up to work with the student organizations, help you all facilitate any type of programs that you're trying to do, step in and help if you're running into any type of issues in terms of securing spaces outside of the university center. And so we work with you to help you do that with logistical stuff. And then of course you have Nelda and Nadir who work with fraternity and sorority life. And so I will yield. Wait, I did programming basics, right?
But I think I was supposed to do it yesterday, but I don't know. You do it?
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and program.
Okay, go ahead.
You do the next. So we'll talk about programming basics, community building initiatives versus complex events. Once again, a complex event, which is going to always be our more difficult ones. The things that hit into those, of course, are going to be anything that's contracted, whether it's some type of service, speaker, resources, that is going to need any type of invoice, anything that have external vendors. So anytime if you want, sometimes groups do food trucks, DJs, things of that nature, any type of third party vendor that is considered an external vendor will automatically make it a complex event. Any type of special event services where you need AUPD, 2Fix, AV, if you're using dining or you're using AU catering, if you're going to host it off campus, just because a lot of logistical things may have to happen off campus. So that's always going to make it a complex event. And if the speaker or the event is considered controversial or things of that nature. And so we want to make sure that everyone is allowed to utilize their voice in this. And so we just want to make sure that the event goes off with people being able to feel safe within that event, no matter who the event is. And we talk about a number of things as we had to do with a number of groups last year to make sure that we could put them in the best situation to be successful. Complex events with that is a 5-week timeline. We always tell everybody that from the date that you're thinking about, work 5 weeks backwards. And so you probably want to reverse engineer that. And so it's going to require of course, you putting it on the word I'm looking for here, engage. And so once again, any one of those things that I mentioned earlier will automatically consider it a complex event. And from that, we'll be able to, once again, it can be in person, hybrid, or virtual. Those are the examples. If you want to do a performer, paid speaker, or any type of pageant, everybody loves pageants. And so you want to be able to do those things. And that's what's pretty much is going to be a complex event. And so our simple events, or what do we call our community building initiatives, will be a 2-3 week timeline. Usually these things don't have any funding in purchasing or food. And if it is some type of food, it may be something that can be done on a credit card. So it's usually pretty simple. And it's going to be a non-paid speaker. So the non-paid speaker agreements or any chats or roundtables that your simple event will be. And so that will be open now. And we won't have to, but for complex events, those dates will happen later on in the semester, and we'll go over those within the timeline. Once again, the virtual, hybrid, or in person, though we know that I just saw something where the CDC said that people don't have to be 6 feet apart anymore because of COVID. People will still have to stay less than 6 feet away from me because I practiced that before COVID was here. But we want to make sure that everyone is still safe. So we're still giving you all these options. If you want to do virtual, hybrid, in person, you still have those options to do that even in those times because, well, monkeypox is becoming a thing, but a little tougher to catch than COVID, but can still be a problem with a bunch of people in a space touching for a long period of time. Once again, our community building initiatives is a 3 weeks in advance. Once again, it can be those simple purchases with welcome back, kickback dialogues that can have the simple purchases like food. If you just want to go pick up catering real quick from like a Panera or something like that, some decorations that could come from Amazon that could be here in a couple of days, something that just isn't going to take as long as a complex event. And usually it's not going to require any type of contracts and things of that nature. Once again, to recap, 3 week timeline. Both events can be virtual, hybrid, and in person. Can cause the difference between community building initiatives and complex event is really the type of purchasing that you're doing. If that's probably the easiest way to figure it out is if you need a contract, it's a complex event. If it can be done with a credit card payment, it can be a community building initiative. If you're going off campus, it's automatically complex. And so those things are considered a complex event. And so now we will, quick important info is once again, on the 15th, you will be able to submit for anything that is considered a simple event or community building initiative, which is, both of we use interchangeably here. And so those will be able to happen on the 15th. Once everybody has been able to, once again, it will sit there as each group is completing their assessment. As you all continue to complete your assessments, then, those things will start to get approved. The 23rd budget request will open, and then 29th, the complex event submissions will open. And so the budget request will open because that gives it'll open probably the day after everyone has been able to finish one of the finance training. So you understand those things, the budget and purchase request, and then the complex event submissions will open then and shortly thereafter. So now we will move into CSI guidelines, where I will yield to Devontae.
All right, so we're going to go through some of the guidelines that CSI has for clubs and organizations just to ensure your success and making sure that you are in compliance throughout the year. So first and foremost, we wanted to talk about student organization travel. So kind of defining what student organization travel looks like under CSI. So student organization travel is any student organization event or experience held outside of DC, the DMV area, essentially. So the two categories that we have for travel, we have a day trip. So this is where students, they'll go from American and they'll return back on the same day. It doesn't require any overnight stay or booking and things like that too for like long transportation and stuff like that too. It just is where you return and come back to campus. And then you have an overnight trip. So that requires special accommodations or length of stay, in which you have off-campus accommodations, such as hotel and things of that nature as well.
Hold on real quick. This computer decided to
Okay.
do what it does best, which is get on my nerves.
Still talking about travel like a little bit to the student organization sponsored trips inside the DMV area are considered complex events, and they have a different approval process, but does follow that complex events timeline. So for your organization and things like that too, making sure that you keep that in mind as well. But we have two different types of trips. We have the day trip, that's when you go and return to American, and then we have the overnight trip, which requires extra accommodations. And as we get everything pulled back up, I'll talk about a little bit about what that timeline looks like. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, we good. We should be good now. Can you see it?
Okay, yeah, I can see it now.
All right.
All right, cool. So student organization travel, it's a 5-week timeline. So first and foremost, you must submit your travel itinerary request form on Engage before you're booking your travel and registration. This is where you give all the details about your travel, the different things that will be going on at the event, the different accommodations that you may need and stuff like that as well. So we can have it for our records as well, so we can review it to see if this is something that we can be able to assist you with. Also too, funds will be released or allocated for accommodations after CSI approves it. So we see everything is good, we'll approve it, and the funds will be released for you to be able to utilize. And then after that, you must submit a student domestic travel form and a travel waiver form through the risk management and safety services system. So making sure that you hold account for everybody who's going on the trip and giving all the logistics and things of that nature so that we can have it on our end, but also so risk management and safety services can have something on their end as well, just in case emergency arises. Also, finally, a final participant list must be given to the CSI advisor before 5 p.m. on that day before travel. So everybody who is anticipated to go on that trip and things like that, everybody who is slated to go, we must have a final list of those individuals. No one can be added after the fact, and things like that too are added at the last minute after it's turned in at 5 o'clock. That is a list and it's final. And also please note that under CSI, we will not allocate funds or facilitate purchases for airfare, which is such as flights or either domestic or international travel for student organizations. So food. So we all love food and things like that too. And students come out to the events and they enjoy the food as well. So to define food, it's any food provided by student organizations for events. They must follow the AU campus event food services policy. So definitely make sure that you take a look at that. But some of the best practices as it comes to food, you must follow the guidelines of the event space. So as you are in different spaces, whether you're in MGC, CATSN, SIS, wherever you are on campus, make sure that you follow their guidelines and review their guidelines so that you don't get in trouble. But also too, clubs and organizations, you can have buffet style food. You can have a list of different options. They have like lots of options from like tenders, sliders, wings, and things of that nature as well. So whatever you put together, making sure that it fits for your audience as well as for that is popular for students to be able to pick up as well, because you don't want to overspend or buy anything that people might not like. But also too, you can get individually wrapped and prepackaged meals as a great option as well, especially with everything going on and health concerns and things like that too. It's easy, it's safe, it's sanitary, things like that too. So we definitely recommend doing individually and prepackaged lunches or things like that as an option. But also too, you're encouraged to use the AU student catering menu. As I said before, there has a lot of options on there. So take a look at that. And most importantly, stick with what don't go and try to be fancy or new and things like that too. If you want to do that, just ensure that's something good, that's something that other people will enjoy as well. So looking at external guests, so with external guests, they are welcomed on campus as well, but they must follow the AU health and safety guidelines. And we also will communicate specific steps if you have external organizations coming to campuses as well. Just giving us just more information. We might have to collect information from them, such as email, phone number, and things like that as well as like the purpose for them being on campus as well, just to have an account for it. So some of the best practice, have multiple plans and formats. So for example, you have a hybrid speaker and things like that. Just have a different format just in case things change. If something happens with technology, you never know what happens and stuff like that too. And make sure that you have your email to stay informed as policies change. And as far as we have information as well as for CSI. Off-campus events. So like before, off-campus event must follow AU health and safety guidelines. And also the CSI complex event timeline and event guidelines as well. So you want to make sure that you're checking all three marks, the health and safety, the complex event timeline, as well as any event guidelines as well. And we have those resources on our Engage page. And we can also assist you as well in CSI. So some of the best practices, start to get very familiar with your CSI advisors, as well as for guidance around the safety of the event. So if you want to make sure that your event is safe, it's a controversial event, or if it's something that you're anticipating a large crowd for, you can definitely get guidance from CSI on how to navigate those type of situations if you are unaware or it's your first time being in a leadership position for a club or organization. But also to familiarize yourself with the DC COVID health and guidance, health and safety guidance, as well as any updates about monkeypox or any other things that's coming out or developing over time. Definitely making sure that you stay up to date on that as well. And just making sure that there's a proof of vaccination and things like that as well, and making sure that you have everything that you need to be squared away for your organization. Co-sponsorships. So co-sponsorships are commitments from organizations to partially handle the cost and management or marketing of the event. So everybody who is a part of a co-sponsorship is bringing something to the event. Nobody should be doing more than the other. It's truly basically it's truly everybody coming together to fulfill a commitment for the event, where that you won't have to do everything, or one person had to take over all the duties and things of that nature, and spending and the marketing. And also so some of the guidelines for co-sponsorships. The organization is responsible for the entirety of the event, who is the owner. As well as that should be one club or organization who is like putting it on Engage and adding the co-sponsors and things like that as well. This is a complex event process that you will follow the CSI guidelines for. And all participating student clubs should be included in the marketing. So if you all have a logo, making sure that everybody's logo is on there, making sure that everybody is recognized, as well as for us to be able to know who's a part of this event as well, so we can be able to, get everything situated with that as well. So an example of this, the Happy Club is the owner of the event. However, they're working with Kennedy Political Union, and they're the co-sponsor, and they will follow AUCC's process for the co-sponsorship as well, and how everything will be allocated from that situation. And I'm going to yield to Asa for best practices.
So as we wait for our colleagues in the University Center, do you all have any questions thus far? Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, hi. The pattern I'm seeing here is the more complex an event gets, obviously, the more time that you have to have in front of it to get approved. I was wondering if you could provide a little bit more visibility and transparency over why it's 2 to 5 weeks and what goes into that.
So basically, what the reason that we ask for 5 weeks, especially if when we're talking about complex events, it depends on the nature of the complex event as well. Let's say you are trying to bring on a speaker and you're trying to pay them, and it's a contract. Well, now that contract has to go to our legal team to look over it, and they may have to go back and forth with that person, and that process alone could maybe take 2 weeks. And so sometimes it is literally because of we may be working with another entity, another office, or even someone that is outside the realm of what our office has control over. And so in that sense, what we have noticed is that when we deal with that, usually it takes about 5 weeks. Sometimes it happens a little earlier. Sometimes it happens past 5 weeks. But there's a lot of things that eventually become out of the office's control, as well as you all as the organization's control. And so we try to just put that buffer in for those things that now happen outside of our control. When it's 2 weeks, there's a lot more things that we can control. Like, so if you need food and you get approved for that food and we can just pay on the credit card, well, we have the credit card here, we can just call it in and pay for it. And that happens. And there's not a lot of things that need to be done with that. So, or if it's a non-speaker agreement, all you got to do is have them fill out the speaker agreement and it's done. And so it gets more complex really because we're adding more people to the process outside of like the office and the organization.
Gotcha. Thank you.
No problem. Yes, Isabel.
Hi. So I was just wondering for a little bit more clarification on if a group is planning for an event during like the first couple weeks of school, what that process will be like. Will it be different because it's so soon, or how will it run?
No, so basically, like because of the processes, anything that is complex, if you're planning something that's going to be complex, I would probably say shoot for anything the last week of September, top of October. Anything that's not complex, you can definitely once everything is open. So like AUCC has to get trained and then they have to meet and they have to work with us to get these things approved and go through the process, because they won't meet until the first week of school, because I mean at the end of the day they're students just like you all are, and so that's why anything that's like a community building initiative, those can take place probably earlier in September. But anything complex, you're probably looking earliest that last week in September, but I would plan for top of October.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Right. Any other questions? Go ahead, Ryan.
If you were stranded on a desert island, what two things would you bring with you?
Uh, my cell phone so I could call somebody to come get me, and some food.
A
I thought I saw Marissa jump in here.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. And Jordan is here. I will go ahead and give you all co-hosts. Everyone, Jordan and Marissa are here from the University Center, so they will be taking on this portion of the presentation to talk about EMS. And some of the things you may hear will overlap just because we work together in a lot of these things. And so you'll hear things like complex meeting timeline and those things because that's probably when we work with them the most. And so I will now yield to Marissa and Jordan. Y'all both are co-hosts, so take it away.
Awesome, thank you. Hi, everybody. As Asa said, I am Jordan Stump and Marissa Bruder is also on the call, and we are both schedulers in the Event Scheduling University Center office. Excuse me. And today we're just going to give a brief overview of our event scheduling system, EMS. Some of you might have experience in it already, but Marissa will walk us through what that looks like to get access and how to start requesting events. And then we'll do a quick overview of the common event requests and event processes that our office usually partners with CSI about. So I will turn it over to Marissa and she'll kind of start the EMS walkthrough.
Awesome. Thank you, Jordan. Are you able to see my screen? Okay. Awesome. Okay, so to start, when you have to get access for EMS, you're going to want to log on to the EMS, and then you're going to sign in at the top right-hand corner of your screen using your AU credentials. And if you need to become a requester for your student organization for the year, you'll need to start by filling out this web app requester form for student organizations. So if you click on that, it'll bring you to the form, and there'll be a series of questions. So you'll go in, put that you're a student, and then read through all of this information and acknowledge it. And then for your recognized student organization. And then this will be the part of the form where you'll put in your name, your AUID, your phone number, and your ID number, along with what student organization you're a part of. And then if you do know your current requester, please input their information into the form as well, because when we transition the requester access to you from your previous requester, will email both of you so that you both know that the access has been switched over and you'll be the new requester for that school year. It's important to know that you can only have one student requester for the entire school year, and that this person will be our main point of contact. So they'll be receiving confirmations, we'll be emailing them, asking for more logistics about events if we have any further questions. So please make sure that they're someone that is going to be checking their email very often to get information from us. So then after you do that, you'll be able to go back into EMS and start requesting spaces for your events. So you'll want to hit create a reservation on the left-hand side, and then you'll do a student org event. From here, you'll be able to pick your date and time and location of event. So for our testing purposes to show, we'll pick in the morning when there's no events to be happening on campus. And then you can also pick the location. So if you search by American University, it will populate all of the different spaces around campus. So you can either browse by this view and see all of the different spaces, or if you know a specific building that you want to have your event in, you can click add remove next to locations and then browse by building. So we can say that we want to have our event in Mary Graydon Center, we'll select that and then remove American University from our location. So then after that, you're able to pick the space that you would like to have your event in. And once you know the space, just click the green plus sign next to it, and it'll bring you to the number of people that you expect to have at the event and the different setup types that are available for that room. So you can input that, and please make sure you input the number of people you expect to have at the event, so then we know for setup purposes how to have the room set up. After you complete that, you can hit the next step button twice to bring you to the reservation details. And you can input your event name and then what type of event it is. So for this practice one, we'll say that it's a meeting. And you should be able to search by your group name. So we'll be the Pitches Be Tripping a cappella group for this event. And then if you have any additional contact information that you want to put in, you can input that as well. And then you'll identify which group you're part of, if you're part of student engagement or fraternity and sororities. And then it'll ask you for your contact advisor. So then you can click on the one that it populates. And it's also very important once you get to the formal event description that you be as detailed as possible so that we have further knowledge of your event. So for this one, we'll say that it's an info session for new members. And then continue on with our form. And in here is where you'll be able to select if it's for AU, if you'll be having catering, will you have alcohol at the event? Is there going to be any non-AU people at the event as well? And then if you have any additional setup needs that you would like us to know. And then you also have the option to add it to the AU calendar if you would like to. And then once you've finished inputting all of your information, you can click that you've read the terms and conditions and then create the reservation. So once you get to this step, it's important to know that this is not a confirmation that you have this space. There still is a manual process behind it that will review the reservation, and then we'll reach back out to you once the reservation has been confirmed, or if it's tentative, then we need more information. But from there, you'll hear from someone on the other end. So now I'll pass it back to Jordan and she will continue on with their presentation.
Thank you. And as Marissa said, once you get that notification that it's been submitted, whoever schedules that space will reach back out to you. And then there is an option online for you to make edits to the events or cancel it on your end, which you are able to do. We just ask that if the event is coming up quickly, especially if it's in an event space that requires additional setup, to reach directly out to the scheduler when you're canceling an event so that they can either let their staff know or make sure that the room doesn't get set up. So if there's an event, I think we would say like within the week that you've been planning on, just make sure to reach out to that scheduler directly to make sure that they're aware of the change. All right. Okay, and as I've alluded to, there are different scheduling offices around campus. So the University Center that Marissa and I work in are responsible for scheduling the Mary Graydon Center, the Butler boardroom and conference rooms, any outdoor space like the quad or the amphitheater, as well as res hall student lounges like McDowell and Hughes. And then we also schedule multiple classrooms throughout campus. But then there are different scheduling offices that mainly schedule and oversee their own buildings. So COGOD, SIS, UCGS, Athletics, and Katzen all have their own specific schedulers that set up and oversee the use of their own spaces. So in particular, I think another really popular event space is the Founders Room in SIS. So we can communicate with them, but then your main contact would be the scheduler for their spaces because they know best what setups they're able to do, their AV. So you want to make sure that you're talking one-on-one with the scheduler that's actually in charge of the specific space. It's also important to know that each office processes requests a bit differently, depending on what information they might be asking you for, or if they have different setup capabilities. It also depends on the workflow, how many events are in there, or requests are in there. It depends on processing times for the time of year. So the beginning of semesters, end of semesters are very high volume scheduling times. So it may take a couple extra days to get through all the requests in the workflow, but kind of mid-semester semester, it might be a lull. Summer, there's more of a lull too. So people can sometimes get back to you, maybe even the same day. So just important to know that each one kind of processes differently, has their own protocols that they go through. But our rule of thumb is that for our office, it typically takes 2 to 5 business days to receive and process requests. And we definitely encourage you to reach back out if you haven't heard back, either with our office or the other schedulers, if you haven't heard back past that 5-day period. There's no harm in following up with the scheduler and just checking to make sure that they've received your request, because sometimes they are waiting on other information, but sometimes there could be a technical glitch or they just didn't receive it. And so they haven't gotten a chance to look at your event yet. So rather than waiting and hoping for the best, definitely be proactive and check back in just to make sure that all the information has been received that a scheduler might need. And this presentation has been shared with CSI. So there's a few different links throughout it. And one of them is this third bullet, which is the space scheduling contact information. So that is a list of all of the schedulers around campus for each building and each event space with their email and phone number if you ever need to reach out throughout the year. And then next, there are a couple different service providers and policies that we work really closely with throughout the year with many of the student groups. The first being TwoFix, especially for events that are outdoors. TwoFix is the department to turn to if you need power or water access. And then if you need any tables, chairs, or trash cans outside, they are the department that would provide those to you. There is an online portal for you to submit a TwoFix request, but they also have their preferred mode of communication is an email. So if you know that you need some of those items for an upcoming event, email twofix@american.edu with the event date and location and any other sorts of needs you might need so that they have that information in writing. And I think they said they can accommodate some last minute things, but they prefer 72 hours notice. So just keep that in mind for any planning that you're taking care of in the fall. And then the next department that we work with a lot is AV. So many of the event spaces and classrooms do have AV already built in, but in case it's an outdoor event or if you need any additional items that the room usually has, AV provides speakers, microphones, anything like that. And sometimes if it's a more complex event with maybe multiple moving parts, they can have a technician on site for an extra fee as well. And then AU Catering is the on-campus food and beverage source. It is not something that you need to use for events, but it is a convenient option. If you're not looking to have AU Catering, you can also have just regular prepackaged food or items provided through a licensed caterer, restaurant, or grocery store. So that's anything like from Giant or Panera, Papa John's, anything like that. We see a lot at many events. The only thing that is not allowed to be at events is homemade food. So if you're looking to do a potluck or a bake sale, unfortunately, homemade items are not allowed to be distributed at public events. And then the next 3 things that are listed, again, they link to all of these policies as well. But the film screen policy is one that we utilize a bunch. If you're looking to host a film or movie or TV show screening, unfortunately, you're not able to just pull up your Netflix or Hulu account. You do need to get the rights to that film or that media. So this policy outlines how to do that. It does usually involve a fee and takes a little bit of time. So that's something to keep in mind if you're looking to do that this fall as well. The second one is amplified sound, which essentially only pertains really to outdoor events. So if you're having an event in the quad, just making sure that sound levels aren't just distracting the surrounding classrooms. Same with in the amphitheater, those surrounding residence halls, and then just making sure that the sound is turned off appropriately during nighttime hours as well. And then that last one is just programming during finals. The last day of classes is the last day that student organizations are able to host events, just to make sure that we are able to focus on studies and exams during that exam and study period. Additionally, if a department is hosting any event during finals week, student attendance cannot be mandatory, again, to focus on studying during that time.
So now we're going to talk about some tabling protocols. So if you want to be able to market for your event or have a smaller scale event where you just like to table, we have 2 indoor locations in the MGC lobby, and we also have 5 outdoor locations by flagpole. They're scheduled in 3-hour time blocks from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on weekdays, and each organization is only allowed to have 1 3-hour time block a day. When you do reserve a table, you'll have to go up to the MGC information desk in order to get the 1 table and 2 chairs that is provided for you in exchange for your AU ID. And along with that, tabling reservations can only take place in the given location that they're at. So that means that you can't have extra tables there, you can't have a tent, and we prefer you to not have a group of larger people since there is only 2 chairs to keep it to those 2 people that are tabling, and then however many students are coming throughout the time of your tabling. If you would like to market for your event, you're also able to submit flyers, and you can bring 4 of them to our office, which is MGC 300. The flyer should include your organization name, the event date, the room, and the time. And if you would like to have your flyer checked in advance to make sure that it has all the different components that are needed, you can email the mgcmarketing@american.au email to get it checked before you print it. We also have some decorating guidelines for different event spaces around campus. We don't allow you to use anything except painter's tape to hang items, and we only allow mylar balloons instead of latex. There's also not allowed to be any confetti or glitter at events, and if you're going to have any event that involves painting or crafts at it, we ask that you cover the tables and the floors with a tablecloth and a tarp to make sure that none of the equipment in the room gets damaged.
So that is kind of the general overview of the more simple events that we see throughout the year, but then we also work very closely with student groups throughout the year with larger events as well, which we, as Asa kind of alluded to earlier, refer to as complex events. So what we view as a complex event is anything that takes place outdoors or in a large event space. Specifically for our office, our large event spaces are MGC 126 and 128, which is now a lounge space. And that is a room that specifically requires a walkthrough with our staff just to see what kind of setups are available due to that new lounge furniture. The tavern is also another complex event space, the quad, the amphitheater, and then other larger spaces around campus would be like SIS Founders, Constitution, anything like that at the athletics building. And then we also view events with any contracting pieces, external guests being invited, or partnerships with external organizations as a complex event. So as we've mentioned earlier, when you're planning these events, please be as descriptive as possible in your EMS request so that from the very beginning, we can start getting the ball rolling because the complex events require a meeting with our office, your student organization's planning team, and also your CSI advisor to walk through all of the details and logistics and setup about the event, and then making sure that we're all on the same page and all are aware of what next steps need to be taken in order for the event to run smoothly. And then specifically for outdoor rain location or outdoor spaces, we do recommend that a rain location or a rain date is booked in advance as well, just in case weather doesn't cooperate on the day of your event. Another type of a complex event is one that involves an external speaker. So any event that you're planning on having a high profile guest or an invited speaker come to, please note that in the initial EMS request as well. So then again, we can loop your CSI advisor in to provide your speaker agreements that would need signature and be returned back, or get the payment rolling as well if that is a component that's involved. It's also important to make sure that the CSI guidelines and timelines are followed in order to confirm guests, but it also might be necessary depending on the level of guest you're inviting that AUPD might need to be involved too if the guest requires higher security and needs a larger security presence at that event. And the last type of complex event we're going to talk about is a hosted external event. So student groups are able to host events with external organizations, but they aren't able to do it free of charge. So if you're looking to maybe partner with your fraternity or sorority's national chapter or bringing in a nonprofit organization to partner with for a charity event, that is possible, but it just would be noted that they most likely will have to pay rental fees, have a signed contract with our legal department, and then also provide their certificate of insurance and payment 2 weeks prior to the event. And then it's important to also know that the student group who is hosting this group will have to fully act as the host at the event. They'll need to be the ones running the event on site, and making sure that all AU policies are being followed. And then the student group is also the liaison between any AU department, whether that's our office, AV, 2Fix, catering, or anything with the national organization. So just making sure that the student group is the one that's fully responsible for how the event is taking place on AU's campus. And then it's just important to note that due to the multiple departments that might be involved, and also how the contract process can take a few weeks with the legal department, we need these events submitted and kind of started as soon as possible, just because it takes a little bit of time to make sure that everything is finalized. So if we do receive a request for a hosted external event, maybe 1 or 2 weeks prior to the event, it's very likely that it would be denied just to there not being sufficient time to prepare for it, for all departments involved. So again, definitely possible, but there's just some other parts that we would need to be aware of moving forward. So that's kind of a brief overview of how our office works closely with CSI. Our email's on the screen for you. Anytime you guys need to ask questions, feel free to email us. Even if it doesn't directly involve our spaces, we're definitely the right place to connect you with the appropriate scheduler. And then we also meet with student groups throughout the year too, to kind of get any event specific questions out of the way. But at this time, if anyone has any questions or wants to put it in the chat, we can do our best to answer them. All right, I'm not seeing any in the chat, and I'm not seeing any hands raising. But again, if any come up throughout the year, feel free to reach out to our team. Oh, I do see one. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm so sorry. I don't know if you covered this and I blanked out or anything, but for the making sure that we're one of the requesters, if we've already been one in the previous year, do we have to fill out the form again, or are we still the same?
You are the one that's been the requester in the past?
Yes.
That's actually a good question. Marissa, do you want to take that one?
I would just fill it out again just to make sure that we have it on record, because some of the student accounts got switched where it took out if they were the requester. So if you just submit it and it's already the same, we'll just let you know that you're all good to go.
All right, thank you so much.
Looks like Hope.
Hi, I actually have a follow-up question to that. So if our former requester was an alumni, is now an alumni, is there a different process, or do we just put in a new person's information?
I don't think it would be any different of a process. You would still need to submit the form because you're looking to be the new requester. And then we just ask that if you do have that person's email, that could be included, but since they're an alumni, they're probably not expecting to do that role anyway. So it's something that if you do have it, you can include it, but it would still be the same form.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah. All right, well, if that is it, thank you guys. We're looking forward to working with you all this year. I'm sure you'll hear from us. Me and Marissa are the ones that also the emails usually come from, so you'll get to know us quite well, but we'll look forward to working with you this year, and have a good rest of your night.
Thank you, Jordan and Marissa, for that. All right, and we will jump back into the presentation. And we will start with, we talk about best practices. So once again, these are common events. A lot of these will always be complex events in most cases. As you can see, when we're talking about movie nights, we're talking about movie nights in the sense of, you always have to do the screening right. That usually takes time. making sure that you're doing those things. Any type of performances will always need 2 fixed and electricity, staging, venue setup. Of course, if you have an occasion dinner or any type of needing any type of catering services, you need a catering contract. And then, unpaid speaker will of course need the guest speaker agreement or the non-paid speaker agreement. And then of course, if they are paid speaker, they need a contract and all of those things. Once again, AU catering, 2 fixed. You want to make sure that you are determining your budget when you're thinking about this before you submit your request. Are you going to, if it's going to be outside and anywhere, like whether it's going to be on the quad, whether it's going to be in the amphitheater, things of that nature, you want to be able to think about how much these things cost before you submit requests. Sometimes last year we would get groups that would have to double back because they didn't anticipate costs. So before you submit your request, do try to anticipate as many costs as you can, whether that's catering, AU catering, or if you're able to go off campus for any type of catering. Once again, working with EMS, as they said before, it's 1 student per org that has access. You want to know as many details as you can. And then of course you want to talk about your logistics, knowing your setup, event time, if there's any practice time, if it's a performance group, if you need any practice time, if you need seating, whatever it is that you need in regards to that, how the tables are going to be set up, anything logistically, how you're going to take, if you're going to have any type of things, how are you going to take attendance, how are you going to do all of these things. And once again, communication is key. You always want to continue to follow up as things could change, whether it's with us, UC, or any of the buildings that you decide to use, whether that's SIS, CATSN. I've been able to work with a lot of those. CATSN follows up pretty quickly. Everybody pretty much follows up pretty quickly in those spaces, and they're always open for communication. So make sure that your communication, because communication is very key. RSVP and event attendance. You can download the Campus Labs check-in app, so you can do it right on your phone. Makes it easier. It will connect to your Engage page, and you can automatically upload your Engage event. And so, taking attendance is easy. It's a way of also, doing some type of assessment as you move in from year to year to understand. It even helps with budgeting. Like, so if you plan an event, you had 100 people show up, but you was anticipating 50, so maybe enough people didn't get to eat, then you understand that following year that you'll be able to plan, and you need to plan for 100 people or plan for a little more, just in case others show up and things of that nature. You want to collect those RSVPs, take attendance, and then within 3 days, submit that for any type of contact tracing purposes, because we're still in the era of monkeypox and things of that nature. Our resources, of course, we're talking about any type of our university departments with event scheduling, any type of review of events, advertising, of course, us as CSI. You always can connect with us. Once again, we'll have a lot of these resources available to you as we continue to work through a lot of the questions that we received on yesterday, and a lot of the questions we even thought about and got last year. Of course, you can go to any of the governance boards. Here are their emails, their emails, but their info when you're talking about trying to be in contact with them, understanding the things that they do. They have resources when they're talking about the things that you'll need in terms of being successful or collaborating with these groups and things of that nature. And so I will yield to Devontae for a quick timeline.
All right, so we'll be talking about some timelines, and you can utilize these timelines to be able to get a good idea when you can put on your events. Like we said before, the complex events, looking to have those a little bit towards the end of September, going into October. And for like the simple events and things like that too, that don't require purchases and things of that nature, those probably will happen a little bit earlier if you are able to get those in and stuff like that too in the fruitful spaces. So first and foremost, I want to talk about community building initiatives. So it has a 3-week minimum timeline. So your first step is to do the initial submission. So you will connect with the AU Club Council consultant, and then you will submit the event on Engage, as well as you will submit a budget request to AUCC. If you are requesting funding from AUCC, could you go back for me, Asa? Okay. And then also to submit a space request on EMS, as we talked about before. After that is step 2. So AUCC will review it and the CSI advisor will review it. We will look at everything and make sure that everything is good. We'll either approve or deny the request, or we'll have you go back and revise your submission, things like that, so you can get approved. So if you are approved, you can submit the purchase request 2 weeks before the event. You can work with CSI Finance to begin purchasing. So make sure that you look out for your email for any correspondence from CSI as it relates to finance. Also, the third step, event confirmation. So we will reach out if more information is needed for the event, of course. But we will also approve the event submission and engage. So once it's approved and engaged, you should be good to go. So update the event submission on engage with marketing, event logistics, the flyer. If you change any dates or times, just keep that updated as much as possible, because people will be actively going to that engage page to be able to find that event. But also too, after the event, make sure that you attend, you must submit a CSI attendance form, just so we can keep track of the event and things like that. And so we can get everything squared away and situated. But also to watch your email for any communication from CSI or AUCC about the event, or if anything came up after the event and things like that as well. So complex events. So this is our 5-week timeline. As we talked about before, these are more high profile events. These are events that require purchasing. So first you will do the initial submission with the club council, and you'll do the same following steps of turning in on engage, talking to the club consultant, requesting on EMS and things like that as well. You'll go through that approval process through AUCC. And as before, same type of information. We will approve the process. We'll let you know. We'll reach out to you if we need any more information or if everything is set, and you'll get approved or not. And then next, you can go to the next one. Next, we have event logistics and purchasing requests. So the student event planning team, they work with us. So we can plan the logistics of the event. So definitely make sure that you get that information over to us. You can meet with the CSI Finance for purchasing to make sure that you get everything for your event. And then the next step is you need a complex event confirmation. So you can update the event submission on Engage and everything, and you'll be able to go in on there and get the logistics and everything added on there for the event. And the student event planning team can start advertising the event, and we can get it out, marketed to the AU campus community. And our final step, which is important, please do a check-in with the CSI advisor or AUCC prior to the event. And the student event planning team will complete any outstanding events, any outstanding tasks on the event checklist, or if we need anything from you, we will reach out to be able to get that from you. And after the event, make sure that you have the event evaluation, the post attendance form, and watch out for any communications from CSI. So that is our timeline. So make sure you follow those timelines, and I'm going to turn it back over to Asa.
All right, so one quick last thing. This is something that the office will be doing starting this year. So please look out for any communications. And so we're going to basically be rolling out a leadership curriculum type of model that will be filled with workshops and things of that nature. One of the biggest things that we want to make sure that you all get is the skills needed to, one, take what you're learning or take the positions that you're in and be able to talk about these in interviews for jobs, internships, externships, postdocs, grad schools, whatever it is you want to talk about. Because at the end of the day, it's a competition out there, right? And so as many of y'all that can say that y'all are a leader of your student organization, there's thousands of other students that can say the same thing. And so we want to make sure that you all are getting those skills that you need in these areas to set yourself apart from those that may not be getting this from other institutions. And so what we're going to be doing is talking about interpersonal development. When we talk about interpersonal development, we're going to be talking about communication, handling conflict, and in regards to that, not only within your student group, but how you communicate with professors, advisors, anything of that nature, how you handle conflict, how are you dealing with those in those manners within your group, how are you learning to lead from that standpoint, understanding the different styles of communication, but also understanding that there are different styles of conflict as well. Cultural competency, of course, is so you can be able to work with other individuals that are different from yourself, to be able to embrace different diversities of people, embracing the diversity that is a part of your own cultural or ethnical group, Critical thinking, how are we making decisions? How does those decisions happen, right? Why are we making this decision? Being able to problem solve not only on the fly, but being able to sit in the moment and really look at this position and think of this thing and figure out what you want this desired outcome to be. And from that desired outcome, how do you decide to make the presentations, the decisions that you need to make? Event management, which we can translate into corporate world as such as a project management. How are you seeing things through from beginning to end? What is your attention to detail? How are you putting things together? And you'll be able to talk about those things. And of course, personal wellness and leadership, those things are more or less for you as well. But personal wellness is going to talk about, we're going to be talking about how to set boundaries. How do you handle time better? How do you take care of yourself mentally? What does rest look like for you? How are you doing with your finances, right? And so we're talking about mental, spiritual, physical, and emotional and mental health and wellness. So we're going to be talking about holistic wellness and giving you those keys that you need to be able to take care of yourself. Because if you can't take care of yourself, all the other stuff doesn't matter anyway. And of course, leadership, understanding the leadership style that you identify with and how do you like to lead, but also understanding to be a leader, you also have to follow as well. And so what does that look like? So these are some of the things that we'll be doing, rolling out at a foundational level this year. We hope that you all find these things interesting and want to join in these workshops to get these skills that are needed, that will be given by some individuals in CSI, but also with campus partners, and we'll reach out to academic partners at some point. But that's just something quick we wanted to talk about, and we will one last time open the doors for questions, if you have any. Go ahead, Connor.
Hi, I have a question about like, will these slides be online?
Yes. So basically, this thing is being recorded, and so we'll put the recording back on there with everything, but we will put the slides out as well, and also the slides from University Center as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, and look out for like either a correspondence or like on our news tab on Engage. I'll be posting like another like note about like the videos, how to get access to quiz and all that information as well.
Yeah, so look out for that over the next couple of days.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? Go ahead, James.
So for like the club that I'm a part of, we're kind of like an environmentalist group that say like go on hikes or something like that. And it'll be like a large chunk of our events.
Mhm.
So if we're going to like a hike and say like Rock Creek Park, would that be considered a complex event since it's traveling, or?
I would probably say it's probably going to be some complex, just because also going on a hike, and so there's a lot of that room that, you know, if someone gets injured, all of those things, and so we'll probably view that as as a complex event. Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? Well, all right. Seeing no more questions, enjoy the rest of your day. Once again, if you need anything, please feel free to reach out to myself or Devontae. Devontae, stay on real quick, but you all can have enjoy the rest of your day. And once again, if you need anything, let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you.